United Nations Environment Assembly is the highest level UN body ever convened on the environment. It enjoys universal membership of all 193 UN member states, as well as other stakeholder groups. With this wide reach into the legislative, financial, and development arena, the new body presents a groundbreaking platform for leadership on global environmental policy. UNEA boasts over 1,200 participants, 170 national delegations, 80 ministers, and 40 events joined the 5-day event from 23rd to the 27th of June 2014 at the UNEP's headquarters in Nairobi, Kenya. Today's edition of Earth5 presents the talking points of that meeting. Welcome to the program. I am Ayola Kasim. The inaugural United Nations Environment Assembly concluded its 5-day deliberations at the headquarters of the United Nations Environment Programme in Nairobi on Friday, the 27th of June 2014. The meeting agreed 16 decisions and resolutions that encourage international action on major environmental issues, ranging from air pollution and the illegal trade in wildlife to plastic debris in the oceans, chemicals, and waste. The international community participated in the assembly in record numbers, with high-level delegations from 160 United Nations member and observer states and stakeholders from multiple sectors present.
We are indeed greatly honored by the presence of Your Excellency, Mr. President, and Your Excellency Secretary General.
UNEA sessions were attended by the UN Secretary General, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and the President of the UN General Assembly, as well as chief executives of the UN system.
Today, there is a common acceptance among governments and people that a healthy environment is necessary for eradicating poverty and supporting equitable economic growth and social progress. We are now poised for the crucial next phase of human development, a universal post-2015 development agenda. That agenda needs a strong voice of you for the environment, and now it has it, thanks to the wisdom of the UN member states meeting in 2012 at the Rio +20 UN Summit meeting on sustainable development. For the first time, all 193 member states of the United Nations, plus major stakeholders, are represented in a single body with a shared goal of articulating the environmental dimension of sustainable development. The message is clear. Protecting humanity's life support system is integral to sustainable development. And it is a duty for all. With this augmented role as a subsidiary organ of the UN General Assembly, UNEA has the mandate and capacity to position the environment alongside peace and security, poverty reduction, global health, trade and sustainable economic growth as an issue of crucial importance to every government.
Sustainable Development and Environment Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The sessions were presided over by Mongolia's Minister of Environment and Green Development.
Regional initiatives, such as for SIDS, are important to complement international efforts. UNEA was recognized as the new platform to forge sustainable societies. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, during this discussion, ministers and other delegates provided their views on the challenges of illegal wildlife trade and its consequences for the environmental, social, and economic aspects of sustainable development, which they observed were exacerbating the impact of other global crises. +1. Are there any other proposals?
The high-level segment, which began on Thursday, focused, among other things, on the Sustainable Development Goals and the post-2015 development agenda, including sustainable consumption and production.
There is a decision on air quality, calling upon UNEP to undertake a number of actions in the coming years. This is a return by governments to giving air pollution and air quality a much higher priority. in part a response to the significant problems of air pollution, particularly in the world's cities, a response also to this rather depressing figure of 7 million premature deaths each year resulting from indoor and outdoor pollution. So you will see in the work of the United Nations Environment Programme with member states a renewed focus and emphasis on this issue.
But there is urgent need to harmonize the various outcomes so that at the end a realistic and implementable set of the development goals and targets are produced for the benefit of the environment and humanity.
The delegates unanimously agreed to encourage governments to set standards and policies across multiple sectors to reduce emissions and manage the negative impacts of air pollution on health, the economy, and overall sustainable development. The UN Environment Programme was mandated to set up its support to government through capacity building, the provision of data, and assessment and periodic reporting on progress made. The decision on air pollution is expected to strengthen existing work by UNEP in areas related to transport emissions, indoor air pollution, chemicals, and sustainable consumption and production through programs such as the Climate and Clean Air Coalition and the Partnership for Clean Fuels and Vehicles.
We didn't make history, but we made the next step in enabling future generations to look back and say, it did matter.
The United Nations Environment Assembly called for reinforced actions and enhanced international coordination to counter the illegal trade in wildlife, which poses threats to the environment and sustainable development. The resolution strongly encourages government to implement their commitment to fight the illegal trade through, among other things, targeted actions to eradicate supply, transit, and demand for illegal wildlife products. It promotes zero-tolerance policies and the development of sustainable and alternative livelihoods for communities adversely affected by the illegal trade.
$48 billion and $153 billion are lost through illegal trade of wildlife, including timber and fisheries, and that's globally each year. Governments and the international community have recently directed substantial attention to addressing threats posed by the increased involvement of transnational organized criminal networks in the illegal trade of wildlife, and ministers said that those challenges could only be effectively tackled through the unified efforts of the international community to support national efforts.
Ladies and gentlemen, according to a report by UNEP and Interpol titled "The Environmental Crime Crisis," released during UNEA, global environmental crime is worth up to $213 billion each year and is helping to finance criminal, militia, and terrorist groups and threatening the security and sustainable development of many nations. UNEP was requested to undertake a number of activities to further efforts in this area. These include providing an analysis of the environmental impact of the illegal trade in wildlife and wildlife products to the next UNEA session, and to raise public awareness about the issue and to work closely with the International Consortium to combat wildlife crime. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime, Interpol, CITES, UNDP, and the Secretary General's Rule of Law Group. UNEP was also requested to support governments to develop and implement environmental rule of law mechanisms at the national level.
Now I would like to turn our attention to CRP 5, an important one. It's a resolution on illegal trade in wildlife, and I would like to see if the committee agrees to adopt this draft resolution.
UNEA also featured a ministerial dialogue on the illegal trade in wildlife, during which participants moved beyond the current attention focused on the poaching crisis facing African elephants and rhinos to address a wider range of threats from illegal harvesting and trafficking, including timber, fish, tigers, pangolins, great apes, and a broad range of birds, reptiles, and other plants.
This is also causing major loss of revenues to governments. In Africa alone, we believe that governments are losing revenues for at least $1.9 billion a year. Secondly, we also believe that due to the involvement of organized crime in the entire charcoal trade, we believe that people organized in this are probably making even more than the government would from revenues in the scale of $2 to $9 billion a year. This is equivalent up to 3 times the value of the drug trade in Africa. Finally, the illegal trade in wildlife and in forest crime also plays a significant role in terms of threat finance to militia groups and terrorist groups.
We must treat this as serious crime, and serious crime has a definition under the UN Convention on Transnational Organised Crime. It means you impose at least 4 years imprisonment for a breach of the law. Now that triggers certain mutual assistance under that convention. But also what it means is you're saying that wildlife crime is not now something that you issue something equivalent of a parking fine for, or you say to the frontline ranger who's not equipped with any weapons, oh, you worry about that. No, this is serious crime. You treat it as serious crime. That means you start deploying the same sort of techniques you use to combat other serious crimes. Human trafficking, arms trafficking, drug trafficking, controlled deliveries. It used to be that a seizure was seen as a success in this field. A seizure is not a success. A seizure shows that a whole lot of animals died and the contraband got seized at the border. You have to track that contraband to the kingpin. Who ordered that? Now, that's where the International Consortium on Combating Wildlife Crime, primarily through UNODC and World Customs, is training people how to use what's called a controlled delivery. It's very much used in combating illicit trade in narcotics. You don't seize it at the border, you track it. And you track it all the way home to find who ordered that in the first place. And then that person is the person who is prosecuted, convicted and incarcerated, and send a message at the high level. Because as Ben said, there are no shortage of foot soldiers here in the field. You know, we need to get the kingpins if we're going to stop this. So we have to change the psychology about wildlife crime. It is not a low-level crime. It is not something you pay lip service to. This is serious crime, involves transnational organised criminals. You're deploying the same techniques. That's why the International Consortium on Combating Wildlife Crime was created in November in 2010, bringing together CITES, Interpol, UN Office of Drugs and Crime, the World Customs Organisation and the World Bank to say we need a coordinated response through the 5 key agencies looking at issues to do with illegal trade. And so there we're doing work on how do you better use forensics, how you use intelligence better, how you can use controlled deliveries to up the ante here so that the response is as formidable as the opposition.
Require difficult compromises for us and for others, but the result will be crucial for